Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Bible study. Today we are in Psalm 11, and this is, I'm not going to say it's a popular psalm, but it was made somewhat popular by a hymn, an old hymn that comes from this chapter. If you've ever heard the hymn, Flee as a Bird, you're probably in a church with some older people in it, and because it's not one that gets sung a lot today. I've heard it a couple times in my life, but it comes from Psalm 11. So, free PDF on our website. As always, let's talk chapter 11. The author of Psalm 11 is David, we are told, and there are no New Testament references back to this psalm as far as I am aware. We have some themes to talk about, but no definitions for today. Just two themes here. The first theme, there's a temptation to flee to safety every time things get hard. Our second theme, there are fights that we cannot flee from without exhibiting a lack of trust in God. This psalm is rather short, only 7 verses in total, but I do have 2 sections here to break it down a little bit. Verses 1 through 3 is our first section. David is advised to, quote, flee like a bird. This psalm was written when David and righteous men like him were being oppressed or being threatened by their enemies. You'll notice David is being threatened by his enemies quite a bit in the opening Psalms here. His advisors were counseling him to run away, that this danger was too great. The best, the smartest, the most strategic thing to do was, quote, to flee like a bird to your mountain, verse 1. David's enemies were prepared to strike. They were going to strike down the righteous, and people were encouraging David to flee like a bird. You know how birds are. They fly away as soon as they sense danger, really quickly up to some high place for safety where the threat can't get them. Section number 2 is verses 4 through 7. David responds to fear with faith. So it seems like David's advisors had the best of intentions, but David wasn't ready to run from this battle. He wasn't ready to run from his adversity. He made his position clear. He was going to put his faith in the strength of God. He wrote, quote, the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes see. God knew David's situation. David wasn't, his adversity wasn't hidden from God, and David knew that God saw him and that he would take care of him. The psalm reads again, quote, the Lord tests the righteous. So it seems like David believed that this was a test of his faith coming from the Lord and that it was his duty to face this trouble head on and to remain in place. He then called on God to deliver him from his enemies in this sticky situation, saying, quote, let him rain coals on the wicked, fire and sulfur, and a scorching wind shall be the portion of their cup. So that is Psalm chapter 11. People are telling David to run away, and he's like, no, I'm holding my ground in the strength of the Lord. That takes us to our application section. You know, birds are flighty creatures. They never sit still, and they're always watching, and when you take one step towards them, they fly away. As soon as they sense danger, they fly away to safety. We don't necessarily always want to imitate birds as we seek to imitate Christ. There are times when we need to stand our ground for the cause of Christ. Standing for the truth will sometimes lead us into confrontations that will not allow us to retreat without abandoning our duty as disciples of Jesus. We need to trust that God will be with us. He'll fight with us and for us in those moments. And we also need to pray for men and women who have the attitude of David. I think the church has plenty of people who are birds, people who will flee or fly away to safety at the slightest sign of discomfort or danger or confrontation or sacrifice or risk. What the church probably has a shortage of are men and women who will forfeit the safety of the mountain to do their duty on the battlefield, even in the face of fear, even in the face of danger.